We're back.
Hey, all you sustainable sluts.
I don't think you can say that.
No. Okay. Well, we can
Maybe like
maybe bile. What are your options?
something less inappropriate. I don't know. Maybe something like waste warriors or
Dumpster divas.
those are better. That's better.
Better. Less derogatory?
Yes.
Low waste witches.
Witches.
Witches are fun.
Doesn't even make sense.
Okay, well.
Bin baddies.
Trash talkers. Compost queens.
Oh, compost queens. That's fun. I don't think we've gotten it yet. I don't think that any of these are right. Hopesters.
Uppity upcyclers.
Ooh, you know, like hopesters? Like hipsters, but
Oh. Yeah.
Oh, wait, that reminds me. I wanted to read something. I don't know if you got this from me, but I sent it to you. It's a quote by Dr. Jane Goodall.
You did send it to me. It was pretty long, so I
Noted.
read part, and then I have 2 kids.
Okay.
They are all over me.
All right. Optimism says everything will be fine. And pessimism says nothing will work out. Hope, on the other hand, has no uncertainties. It is the dogged determination to do what is in our power to make the better future we wish for to actually happen. I just liked it because we have the word hope in our podcast.
Okay. You heard it here first, hopesters. Well, probably heard it from Jane Goodall first. But
New year, new habits. It's time for a crash course on low waste living.
because sustainability isn't just for the planet, it's for you too.
Which is why we took a couple weeks off to rest and rejuvenate. And we did forget to tell all of our listeners.
But we had plans to, and I think it's the thought that counts in this case.
All that to say, we're back.
One can hope. So we are definitely back to our weekly podcast schedule. You can look forward to this every Monday.
And we have some big goals for the year. Maybe not right away, but throughout the year, we are hoping to have corresponding videos that kind of help with maybe something we're talking about.
Or a DIY.
Yeah. Also, informative posts that maybe you could share easily with friends and family who may not have 30 minutes to listen to a podcast, but
Yeah, more of a bullet point.
yeah.
Infographic, perhaps. We also want to start doing interviews at some point.
Bringing in some experts. And what was the last one? Just keep being awesome.
That's definitely my goal.
I feel
Stay
awesome most
awesome.
of the time. We have one other goal, which is a bit lofty, but we would really love to get to 10,000 subscribers on the podcast by the end of the year. So please share and subscribe
And
if you haven't already.
we think it's possible.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, spread the good word.
Yeah, because the more people that start subscribing and listening, the more waste hopefully is being diverted, which is the whole goal of the podcast anyway. Bringing awareness, educating, and reminding people that we're all in it together.
And the more people that support it, the more we can put into it, both in the podcast and on social media platforms. So
So call now and we will throw in
1-800 HOPESTER.
Hopester.
Yeah.
Let's talk about low waste living and how it's not just a fad, that it's actually a resolution with results since we're in the new year.
Yes, and I think we need to start with why waste is problematic in the first place. Let's take out our handy dandy notebooks and read a few facts. As we do, over 2 billion metric tons of unsustainable human-generated waste are thrown away globally every year, entering our environment and polluting every ecosystem around the world. If we continue practicing waste management strategies as we do today, that number rises to 3.78 billion metric tons by 2050.
So we're going from what number to what number?
We're going from 2 billion metric tons to 3.78 billions,
So
almost
it's-
doubling.
So it's growing.
Almost doubling, but in a much shorter amount of time.
Right. How about this fun fact? 62% of global waste is collected in controlled municipal facilities, while the remaining 38% is dumped, burned, or discarded.
That was fun. So one of the biggest problems with landfills, or one of their biggest environmental impacts, is the landfill gases. So when organic materials end up in a landfill, especially food, they start to break down, but not in the best way. They don't
Well, they're not feeding any soil for sure. They're just releasing gas.
Right. So they're just releasing what's called landfill gas, which is about half methane and half carbon dioxide, making landfill gas the third largest source of human-related methane emissions in the United States.
Yes, there are sanitary landfills, though, that are able to, one, keep a lot of that waste, like the microplastics and everything. Those sanitary landfills are designed to prevent all of that from getting into the environment through soil and waterways and things like that. And the gases are actually captured and used to create energy. Now, while that's a wonderful thing to think about, only about 7 to 8% of the landfills in the world are sanitary. And then the rest are just dumping grounds. Yeah, where you just kind of throw it and things can go in the air and it's just a free-for-all.
There's the Wild West out there.
Even if all of the landfills were sanitary, it's still a good idea to try and reduce waste because we're also limited to the amount of resources, like land resources, that a landfill can take up.
And every environmentalist will say that the biggest solution is not dealing with the waste, but preventing it from the beginning.
From ever entering the waste stream in the first place.
Right.
One other thing that many people aren't thinking about when they're throwing away their trash, knowing that it's going to some landfill somewhere, is that it's going into usually marginalized communities. So those off-gassing and all of that is affecting not only the property value of those areas, but also the health of the individuals living in those areas. And 13 million people live within 1 mile of a landfill.
Man.
So we got to think about our friends and neighbors when we're throwing things away. We got to think about our planet, think about ourselves, think about our kids, their future.
We have to think about our kids. So whether you're brand new to the low waste lifestyle or you've been doing it for a while and just want a refresher, this episode is all about the main principles behind it. So how can we reduce our waste?
By practicing the 5 R's, which we've mentioned in a previous podcast episode, but this is kind of an overview in a little bit more detail. The first R is refuse. The number one rule of low waste living is to say no.
Don't buy things you don't need.
Right.
Basically, which is so funny to me because so many times people will say, I really want to be more sustainable, but it's so expensive. To that I say, literally the first rule is just stop buying things you don't need, which is the opposite of expensive and will probably save you so much money.
I mean, and it's not even not buying things. It's also saying no to things that you know are trash. It could be saying no to that single-use coffee cup.
Right, or a single-use plastic bag from the grocery store. Refusing that bag, refusing a straw at a restaurant. Those are all ways to say no to single-use plastics and waste.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes a little practice. Like I will still forget, especially whenever I go home to Louisiana, I will forget to say, no straw, please, because every drink still comes with a straw. It's going to be something that will get easier as you practice.
And as more and more states or towns or cities start to ban these single-use plastic products.
Yeah, I mean, at this point here in Pennsylvania, they're not giving you plastic bags and plastic straws.
Right.
So you don't have to think about asking for no plastic bag or no straw.
Right. I mean, and where I live, it's still given. They're still given out.
Really?
Yeah. Also in Pennsylvania. But in neighboring New Jersey, I think that's a statewide ban.
Oh, okay.
And yours is more of a township.
Municipality.
Right.
Interesting. I did not realize that.
Oh, yeah.
So you still have to practice.
Oh, definitely. And it takes effort. And even if you refuse it, sometimes it still comes out because people just get into the
habit.
And they're just doing the same thing over and over. And there's no reason to get mad at anybody for giving you a plastic bag after you ask not to. Everyone's just out here trying to survive. But Yeah, just, oh, no, thank you. I brought my own bags. And sometimes if
Even
it happens
if
at a
they've already
grocery
put it in the bag, sometimes I'll say, oh, actually, I don't need a bag. Thank you so much.
Yep, I do the same thing. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mention, but I brought my own bags and I'll just take it out. And they can reuse those. It's not like a fork that's been used,
Right.
It's just a bag.
Of course, the other thing we've talked about in a little bit more detail are like the dentist office favors, like the little gifty things that break, or the plastic toothbrushes, stickers, or whatever it might be. Even people who go to big business conventions where they have a lot of promo things or trade shows.
Right, you can just not take all that free stuff. As tempting as it may be, you can just say, no thanks. I don't need that Slinky with your brand logo on it.
Or that drink cozy.
Right.
Cozy. Or that drink.
I think it's a cozy koozie.
Cozy koozie.
I mean, you go into Target, there's some cute trinkets. And you just say, you know what? I don't really need it. Actually, I heard someone say a great mindset to when you go into some place and there's something you want to buy, instead of thinking, do I need this? Because you can kind of justify. Say, can I live without it? It's simple, but it really changes the thought process.
Yeah, it changes that perspective a little bit.
It does.
For me, I'm always like, where would I put this? And if there is no place in my house that it could be a definite, yes, this is where this belongs. Nope.
Yeah, for me, it's, do I want to clean this? And it's almost always no.
Nope.
No, I don't. I don't want anything to do with cleaning more things.
Do I want to pick this up off the floor every day?
No. Do I want to risk my toddler licking this? No.
Okay, so second R is reduce. Very similar to refuse.
But use less of the things you do need. I think a great example is you need water, right? We need running water, but there are ways to use less of it. For instance, when you're washing dishes, turn it off while you're scrubbing a plate.
Dishwasher.
If you have that, lucky.
Take shorter showers.
Turn the lights off when you're not in a room. Turn the temperature down a few notches if you're not going to be in your home. Those are things outside of physical waste, but it all falls into the low waste lifestyle.
Right. If you are someone who is fortunate enough to have a car, maybe take the train or public transportation or walk to a place that's nearby you. Just reduce the amount of emissions that you're creating. Bike.
Even things like buying in bulk to reduce packaging.
Bringing your own containers, filling them with the nuts or the rice or the pantry staples.
And getting what you need and what you know you'll use. That way the rest isn't discarded.
Again, from a previous episode, if you have the ability to shop for food that isn't packaged, whether that's through a CSA or your farmer's market, that's a great way to reduce the amount of packaging coming into the home. And then, of course, reducing the amount of plastic throwaway items that you're using in your house cleaning routine or in your personal care routine.
Some examples of that might be using cloth rags that you can wash as opposed to paper towels.
Or compostable floss instead of plastic floss.
Using your own water bottle so that you don't need to keep buying plastic water bottles.
So those are some really easy options that allow you to reduce your waste. And then we move to the third R, my favorite. Reuse. You love that one too.
I do. I just couldn't.
I mean, we love all of these.
I'm not all there these days. Reuse is the best.
Yeah, I feel like you're the reuse queen.
Yeah. Reuse royalty.
Yeah.
I always prefer alliteration. Secondhand shopping is a great example of reuse or upcycling.
And we've talked about buy nothing before, but we've never actually shared with people how they can even get onto a buy nothing group.
Right.
So with buy nothing, as we've mentioned in prior episodes, if you needed something or if you had something that you didn't need anymore, you would reach out on this buy nothing group in your area. And for me, and I know for you as well, we do it through Facebook. It's really the only thing I use Facebook for, that and Facebook Marketplace, to find secondhand things and to give away items to community members where I know that they're going to go to a good home, like a place that will actually use it. Yeah, that's what I mean. When I say a good home, I mean someone that's like I need and want this.
Exactly.
That way it's not getting donated and then maybe ending up in a landfill somewhere and all of that.
We actually don't have a Buy Nothing group where we live. And the closest one is about 20 minutes away. And I am never getting to that first.
Sure.
But you have had some incredible finds in your Buy Nothing group. Yours is through Facebook.
Right.
And you can type in Buy Nothing and your town or your area.
Your zip code sometimes.
And
you can just look.
Right. And then you usually have to request to join.
Yeah, you have to give some answers to questions to make sure you're actually living in that area.
Exactly. You can put anything on there that you want to get rid of, but you can also say, in search of a kiddie pool is an example that came into my mind for no reason at all.
Or school supplies.
School supplies, anything that you're looking for. You can see if anyone in your community has that they're willing to get rid of.
And sometimes it's people giving away things like plant cuttings, or I got a fig tree, a small little fig tree once. I even got like replacement globes for my light fixture because someone was giving them away and it was the exact size that I needed. Again, saving money.
Yeah.
Whenever I was working in an office job and the office closed during COVID, I helped rehome all of that office furniture through Buy Nothing.
That's amazing.
It's such a great way to connect with community members as well, because you're meeting your actual neighbors.
And even though our area doesn't have a Buy Nothing group specific to our town, we do still have Marketplace, Facebook
Right.
Marketplace, where things are listed for free. For example, the chicken coop I picked up this year, which is a $700-800 chicken coop. Somebody listed for free. The description was just, come get this and it's yours. I just had to go and disassemble it. And it was a free chicken coop in excellent condition. I had to fix one little thing, I think, like the lock was broken maybe. But if you look, it's there. And what's especially important, I think, to note on Facebook is that it starts to recognize your search pattern.
Yeah, the algorithm.
So if you start looking for chicken coop, that's what starts showing up in your feed. And you have curated an incredible feed in your marketplace. Buy Nothing isn't really like that, but your marketplace is. And so you've furnished almost your entire house off of things you found secondhand.
It's my goal to have a house that is full of stories.
Oh, that's cute.
So this is again why reuse is one of my favorite R's.
Not only the secondhand, but the upcycling, that's really my strong suit.
Oh yeah, you're great at that.
I love it so much. I think my most viral video on social media was I took an old beat up comforter that was, by the way, from Shift, had like a textile collection.
Yeah.
And there was a comforter.
Shift is my refillery, in case
Shift
you
is her
didn't know.
And you gave me bags of all these fabrics to go through.
Right.
And there was this very beat up quilt. Old, cute. It had a cute little yellow flower pattern, but it had holes all over it, stains. And I cut it up to make a yoga bolster that I filled with unusable fabric scraps. And it made a perfect bolster because those fabric scraps were very dense. That video was on both platforms, my most viral, and generated the most followers. It's crazy. You never know what's going to speak to people, but that one did it. And that was a great example of upcycling.
There's the obvious refilling as well. If you're reusing the same container over and over again, then you're not creating trash with the packaging.
We do like our glass peanut butter jars. Mm-hmm. And those we can bring to the refillery and get hand soap or dish soap or anything. And I know we've mentioned this in previous episodes, but these containers can get used over and over again.
It could be any kind of container.
Out.
It could be plastic, glass, whatever. And it is refilled until maybe sometimes it does break. There have been plastic ones that eventually just call it quits.
We got a Perry bottle from the hospital when I gave birth.
What's a Perry bottle?
Well, you use it to spray and help clean everything after you go to the bathroom, but ours was unused. But we saved it, and Jonathan, my husband, uses it for his witch hazel, which he uses as aftershave.
This is why we ask you to bring them in clean and dry.
It was clean. It was unused.
I'm
totally sanitary.
I'm just saying. For anyone who was wondering. And then, of course, is repairing, which I am notoriously horrible at doing, but really great at asking you to do.
Yeah. You've taken a couple classes, though, or offered classes at your refillery.
Yeah, we
the
do mending stations. We've done sip and sews. So I can, like, if you need a button put on,
You know how to do buttons now?
I can do a button.
You go, girl.
You know, I am just Susie Homemaker.
Both my husband and I don't know what it is with our thighs, but our jeans just get holes in the inseam. We repair them and they last forever. It's not like anyone else can see it. But there was a time in my life where I would have just disposed of those.
Yeah, now it's a bit of a badge of honor, I feel like.
Oh,
especially because there's so many cute ways to have a visible mend.
Yeah, the patches are adorable.
Yeah, to where it's kind of become a fashion statement where you're like, I care about the planet.
Right. And not just repairing clothing, but repairing things around the house. Every time I tell you something's broken and you're like, oh, you could probably fix it. And I'm like, could I?
That's only been my attitude, I think, in the last 7 years. Maybe when I started going low waist, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. You know what it was where I first started realizing it with electronics was our dryer stopped working and it just wasn't heating up. And so I went online, I was reading about it, and there was like a $2 part. I don't know, it was something very inexpensive that was just a sensor. Literally, like you just unscrew it and screw it in. So I was like, I'll give it a try. What's the worst that could be? Like, it's a couple bucks.
And that was it?
That was it. That was all it needed.
That's insane.
And I could have paid too much money
Yes.
to have someone come fix that for me.
Minimum $100.
But yeah, not everyone is a DIYer or a fixer-upper or anything like that. But I try to be, especially when I'm trying to be conscious about waste and money management.
The fourth R, recycle. Kind of a bummer of an R after you get
It's a
into the
bummer
waste.
of an R, especially now that we know that recycling is broken.
Right.
It almost feels like it should be last now. It's a team sport, right? If you're doing it right, but your neighbor's doing it wrong, those are both going into the same truck. And whenever it gets to its destination, when they start pulling out that recycling, they're going to, at a certain point, if it's tainted with enough actual waste and not just recyclable materials, that whole truck is going in landfill.
Well, not to mention if your area even offers recycling.
Right.
Ours doesn't.
Right.
Although we get a recycling bin, but they dump it into the same truck every
Interesting.
single time.
So then that's even more of a reason for you not to have waste.
Right, to use less.
For us, I know that the paper's getting recycled and most of the metal's getting recycled. Glass just being crushed up and put on top of landfill cover, but there are places around that'll take the glass, so we don't put our glass in our recycling typically.
But it is important to note, for recycling, when it comes to plastic, there's a triangle on most plastics.
That doesn't
has a
mean
number.
it's recyclable.
It doesn't, which I thought for years.
Yeah.
That number tells you what kind of plastic it is. And then you have to look at your local guidelines to find out which types of plastic are accepted. I know around here, I think numbers 1 through 6 are accepted. But in some areas, it's only number 1 and 2 plastics.
And it will change. If the contract is up with one recycler and it goes to a different recycler, you'll probably get notification. Make sure that you're paying attention to that. Even the recycling facilities will say reducing the waste is the number one thing to do.
And the statistic from a couple years ago, and it's probably gone down since then, is that only 8% of plastic is actually recycled.
I know it's gone down since then. I think it's way less now.
That's good. On the other hand, if recycled properly, glass and metal are infinitely recyclable, meaning they can be recycled over and over forever without reducing their quality.
So I know you mentioned that you don't have curbside recycling, but are there places near you that you can go to bring, for instance, light bulbs or batteries? Because I know that IKEA or Home Depot will often take light bulbs. Staples takes batteries and like ink cartridges and stuff like that. Help C bins will take any clothing or linens in any condition. If you've got things that have holes in them, stains that just are not.
I upcycle those.
And sorry, I didn't finish. And you're not Ali. Those will get used, typically, again, turned into insulation or something like that. There are collection sites and drop-off sites where you can go even if you don't have curbside recycling. Do you have anything near you?
I mean, near me is a stretch. I would say the closest civilization is 30 to 45 minutes away, and we go there. But we're not getting rid of a lot of those specialty items. We don't have a ton of e-waste. We don't go through a lot of printer cartridges, but we have dropped those off at Staples. Or actually, I think we've gotten mailers to send them back.
From the company?
From the company.
Nice.
And we try to reuse a lot of the glass as much as we can. It gets to be a lot of glass. And we were dropping it off at your source for a while when we lived around here.
When you lived next door?
Ooh, I knew I could get you to say it without much coaxing. Anyway.
Speaking of rot, the fifth R.
The fifth R.
Rot.
Rot.
Which is
what you do with everything else. If you can't refuse it or
before it goes
reduce
to trash.
This is the final stop before a landfill.
Rot is just an R word for compost.
4 R's and C, it doesn't have the same ring.
You need 5 R's.
5 R's. So rot. And yeah, it's compost, which is food waste. But also, I think not everyone realizes it's not only food waste that can be composted.
If it grows, it goes in the compost.
Oh, that's good.
That's from my friend Gwen, who runs a curbside compost.
Yeah, so organic material, which can include textiles like cotton, wool, but also human hair,
nail clippings,
tissues, and some things you may not think of, like your bamboo toothbrushes or bamboo floss.
We even have compostable floss picks, but those have to be commercially composted.
Okay, so this is compost is a whole episode.
It is definitely a whole episode.
But very quickly.
Yeah, so there's backyard composting, which for me is too much. So I choose curbside composting because that's an option in our area. And the benefit of curbside compost is that it's going to a commercial composting facility where it's breaking down things at a faster rate because of the amount of waste and the heat that it generates. Whenever you see compostable packaging, you can always tell whether it's backyard compostable or whether it is commercially compostable.
Recently, I was looking for plates for something. Some event was happening, and so I was looking for compostable plates. We didn't have our reusable ones yet. So I went to the grocery store and I checked 5 different types of plates that said compostable on them. Every one of them was commercially compostable, which meant that we couldn't use them because we don't have access to commercial compost and they wouldn't break down in our backyard bins. Typically, that's because they're made with a more processed material.
Or they might break down, but it will take
much longer.
Ever.
Not all commercial composters accept all of those things.
Right.
Like, I know for some businesses, a film set that I used to work on would have compostable plates and napkins and cutlery, and then they stopped offering that because their composter was only taking food waste. So you have to make sure that your curbside pickup is accepting those things.
And then near us, there's a grocery store that allows you to just drop off your food waste at the store. If you don't have curbside and you don't have backyard, you can just drop it off. So people will keep their waste in the freezer to keep it from smelling or something like that. And they take it all, dump it in that big community compost.
When we lived in Brooklyn, every farmer's market had a compost area where people from the neighborhood could bring your compost scraps.
Amazing.
Also, community gardens will often take your compost.
You do see countertop compost options that are really just dehydrating the food and grounding it up. It's not real compost, and it's debatable about how many nutrients are actually left in that remaining mixture.
Okay.
It's not a sludge so much, it's just like dried, crumbly, I don't know. And if that works for you, if that's the way that you're able to reduce your food waste,
Or keep it out of a landfill.
great. But there are resources that a machine like that takes, not only to make, but also to run, and at the end of life, what happens to it. So those are just things to think about whenever you're rounding out that last R. Okay, let's say you have made a resolution that this is the year you're going to start lowering your waste. I always feel like the best way to start that is just to take a look in your trash can and see what most of your waste is. If it's a lot of paper towels, maybe that's the first thing you try. If it's a lot of those little cotton rounds for removing makeup, maybe you get some reusable rounds for that.
Yeah, if you're using a lot of the baby wipes,
Maybe make
find
your
an
own.
alternative.
It's called a trash audit in the world of low waste, where you're just figuring out where the majority of your waste is coming into your household.
Take your trash for about a week. And just at the end of the week, take a look. See what's going on in there. What do you have the most of? Where can you cut back?
At our refillery, we'll always say, use what you have. And then once you run out of it, that's a great time to look for more sustainable alternatives.
Don't just throw out your paper towels.
No.
Finish using them or keep them to save for the heavier messes.
If you have pets, that kind of thing.
That's a great opportunity to use that. And then get some rags to start working in the meantime.
I would say that's the easiest way to kind of figure out where you can make the biggest impact the quickest in your own life. Whether you're refusing freebies you don't need, or finally saying goodbye to that mystery drawer full of plastic bags,
Or if you're composting those holiday leftovers instead of throwing them away.
let's kickstart the new year with resolutions that reduce waste, not joy.
And we'll all be crushing those low waste goals together.
One can
One
hope.
can hope.